Achtung, jetzt kommt Gretchen's Podcast.
Welcome to Gretchen'S podcast. My name is Marc Hype. I'm your host for the show. Today we are welcoming our very special guest from the UK and DJ and producer extraordinaire for many, many years, the very talented Mr. Scruff. Welcome.
Thank you. What an honor.
Yeah. We're really proud to have you on our show too, of course. Let's start at the beginning. How was your first contact with music? What made you think more about it than pure consummating?
I think it was just listening to pop music as a kid. And in the late 70s, early 80s, there was quite a wide variety of music in the UK charts. And a lot of the two-tone music really caught my ear. So Madness, The Specials, Selector, all that kind of thing. So I became a fan of that. Then I discovered some of my dad's old ska records, because my dad was a big R&B fan, but had a few ska records. He used to be a DJ and promoter back in the 60s for blues gigs. And then I kind of made a connection between the two-tone and the original ska, which blew my mind, because normally you're not supposed to like your parents' music, right? So yeah, I discovered all the ska records that kind of inspired all the two-tone kind of punky modern UK ska that I was into. Then through a friend's uncle a couple of years later, about 83, 84, I discovered electro. And then it was just listening to radio, and, you know, kind of the 80s was like the era of the megamix. And obviously early DMC and things like that. So it was listening to a lot of radio mixes, a lot of the sort of bootleg megamix things, Bozo Miko, Chad Jackson, Steinsky, you know, a lot of the Zulu things from New York, and Shep Pettibone, and a lot of 12 inches had mega mixes on as well. So as teenagers, without Technics or mixers, we were hearing these mixes and going, I've got those records. Or if I haven't got those records, I'm going to get those records and I'm going to copy what those DJs are doing without knowing what they were doing or having the equipment. So yeah, it just turned from, you know, slowly grew into a bit of an obsession, and it was half music and half technical. And it was because for me, the art form of the mega mixes, in terms of being very creative with what you combine, and also quite sophisticated editing techniques that we could mimic using pause buttons, was it was an achievable dream. You know, you didn't need to have a load of instruments or a load of equipment. You just needed one record player and a cassette deck, and you could improvise and learn and then work out what you needed next, using what equipment was around in the home or in, you know, second-hand shops. So yeah, it was just getting into more dance music in the 80s, hip-hop, electro, early house music, jazz, soul. I think because there were less releases in the 80s, all DJs knew a wide variety of music. They couldn't really specialize because there weren't enough new releases, you know, for most DJs. So yeah, it was just getting into that really, and as the knowledge and the equipment became more accessible, then, you know, I just carried on. But it's always been, for me, been about kind of learning about new music and then bringing that into what you're doing creatively with mixing.
So you started quite early in '84, right?
Yes.
So, but live as like spinning in clubs, you just took your time until '92, I read?
Yeah, about probably about 94, I started getting regular bar gigs and stuff like that.
It's like 10 years.
Yeah, but I was just happy doing it in my bedroom, making mixtapes. I was selling a few mixtapes. They were getting played on local radio. But because I didn't really know that many other people who were into the music I was into, I was just quite happy doing it as a hobby. It wasn't, because I wasn't surrounded by other DJs. I wasn't surrounded by people who were putting on club nights. So when I started to meet some of these people in record shops and all that kind of thing, they heard what I was doing and gave me the opportunity. But I think without people offering me those gigs and things like that, I probably would still be just happy here in my bedroom with my headphones on,
Really? I find you are one of the most traveling DJs still to today.
Yeah, I'm pleased, but there wasn't a rush because it was cool because that 10 years, I think I really got to, in the 80s, I got to develop a style which was influenced by many different kinds of DJing, many different mixes, stuff I was hearing on radio. Yeah, I wasn't really, part of a crew or anything like that. So it's just learning on my own. But although it took longer, I think it gave me a strong kind of unique foundation, which meant that I was never part of a particular scene. I was always, I always knew lots as I started becoming more involved in like the community and the venues and different things like that. I go to lots of different record shops, reggae shops, hip hop shops, house shops, because it's all music and it's all new and it's all amazing. So you just end up learning about the culture and the music and its history through, through the records and then the paths that music takes you down.
Mm. So you're from the greater Manchester area, right?
Yes.
So it's a music cup, but still it was back then, it was the melting pots. London, Bristol were renowned for like the typical UK sound, eclectic selections with the breaks and then all kinds of genres mixed up. How it is, because you said you had just in the start, like just a few bar gigs and you had no people around that did the same like mind state about putting music and this style together. So how was it, the difference between like the different feeling between the Manchester area where you're from and London and Bristol at this time in the 90s?
It was, I think it was quite similar. I think because I think then in the late 80s, early 90s, most DJs have, kind of very open-minded and flexible. Some of my earliest gigs were in Bristol and London, and you'd meet up with other people. And obviously from Bristol, we knew about, Massive Attack and Smith and Mighty, and the kind of, the city's musical heritage. Obviously London, a lot of the music we were buying was from London. So yeah, there wasn't really, there was a mutual appreciation, I think. Quite quickly I got to meet and get to know all the Ninja Tune people, so DJ Food and Cold Cut and people like that. And some of the earliest records I bought were from Cold Cut. so a lot of their mixes, Greedy Beat and all that kind of stuff. So we all knew what each other was up to from our mixes and from our records. So it was just like, it was like it was today. You can travel halfway around the world and meet people who you have a lot in common with, and you very quickly become family. And music's always had that connecting thing, more so these days. But because we were all diggers, because we all really paid attention to new releases, and checked each other out and got to DJ together, there was a lot more in common than there was different. And I think any people from, my generation, I'm 51 years old now, but like, I don't know many people who are just like, I just like hip hop, or I just like this. I know loads of hip hop heads who've got thousands of house records and a big reggae collection. And I think that was just kind of how it was in the 80s. You had to know your music because you never know what the gigs would require. You know what I mean? You couldn't afford to be kind of too mega specialist. So it was, there were differences in the musical history of every city, but there was a lot in common because obviously we were all getting the same records, and radio and magazines were kind of filling in a lot of the gaps, and obviously we all looked to America for influence as well. So it was great. It was really good to go from just being a bedroom DJ to very quickly being in a situation where I was traveling around to different cities and kind of playing a wide variety of music, alongside other people who were just like me, kind of young, enthusiastic, kind of coming from a hip hop background in terms of technical skills, but also in terms of curiosity and not particularly narrowing ourselves into certain genres. So there's always excitement about discovery and lots of digging and, a lot of record shopping, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, we needed to do this back then. The record shopping, it was a very important part of the whole story. To do like meeting people at stores too, like got to exchange, you get all this knowledge together in stores, basically, or flea markets. Right now, people digging online only, the newer ones at least.
Yeah,
and there's a big difference, like how you getting into this, and then what you make out of it afterwards with a different type of knowledge.
Of course.
So you're known for your extra long DJ sets, like 6 to 8 hours is standard. How does this come? Usually other colleagues 2 hours straight, that's this, and you like to play long. But this is time. This is crazy over a whole career.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing was probably in the 90s. I mean, we all used to do bar gigs, and all the bar gigs are 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, and I think in the 60s and 70s, and for most of the 80s, there wasn't really a guest DJ culture, unless you're maybe talking about the Northern Soul scene or things like that. But generally, you had one DJ all night, and they were another member of staff in the venue, basically. You know what I mean? You didn't really have this kind of the guest DJ things. Unless it was like specialist events or all-dayers or that kind of thing. So I think it was a normal thing for a DJ to do. And then in the 90s, I used to play lots of different nights, hip-hop nights, house nights, soul nights, reggae nights, kind of world music nights, whatever I was asked to do. And I'd always be a guest or sometimes a resident at these, but that was always alongside other DJs. And then in 99, a lady called Raki Kumar asked me if I'd like to do a residency, because I was playing every weekend in Manchester in different clubs, different venues, different nights. And she said, do you want to do your own night? And I'd never really thought about it, because as a DJ, I wasn't really thinking about building a crowd. You just turn up to the club and people were there, and you didn't really think about how that was happening. So what I wasn't really aware of then is that the 5 years I've been DJing in Manchester, I'd built up a crowd through releases as well, obviously the awareness of having music out. So she offered me a residency, and that was when I started to bring all these different nights I was playing at kind of under one roof, in terms of the influences. And also, when you're playing at someone else's night, there are kind of a few rules. Like, you wouldn't really play house at a hip hop night. People didn't really like that in the 90s. But when it was my night, it was like, okay, well, here we go. This is kind of so. Yeah, I started playing all night, and then when I started to get a lot more gigs around Europe, around the world, I said, well, I really enjoy this all-night residency thing, so I'd like to kind of do that wherever I go, because you spend a lot of time traveling, and I really enjoy the warm-up. I really enjoy getting to know the people in the venue and all the sound check and all this kind of procedure, and kind of, it's a way to get comfortable.
Really?
So I just always like to do it. And I think if you're playing a lot of music of different styles, it's nice to be able to play a wide variety, but without rushing from one thing to the other, or thinking, otherwise it feels like you're ticking a box, you know what I mean? Like 2 hip-hop records and 2 funk records and 2 disco records and 2 house records. Oh, time's up. So it's nice to let the records breathe, or just go, right, well, I want to play a Fela Kuti record. It's 18 minutes long. Cool. So it's nice to play some really long pieces of music and let them breathe, and not be super technical and mixing all night. Because I think what a lot of DJs do, if they have 2 hours, there's a pressure to kind of cut a lot of the records short, simply because of what you'd like to fit in. And to me, although I really enjoy being creative with the music and, like layering stuff and using double copies and effects and all that kind of thing, like some records just need to kind of, you need to step back. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you have very busy parts of the night where you've got your head down and you just bang, 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 bang. And then other times it's like, right, now we need to just let this record take us where we need to go, and then we'll continue that journey afterwards. So it was something I think was, for me and my kind of era of DJs, playing all night was traditional, and it suited my style in terms of, I've always been quite technical. I've always played a lot of different music, but I've generally preferred to let the records play out rather than just play like a verse of this and then, go into a verse of something else, you know what I mean? That kind of very bang, 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 bang style of DJing. I kind of prefer to let the music kind of, stretch out and do its thing. And a lot of records, they move through some emotions or moods through the course of 5 or 6 minutes. And many tunes do that in a much more dynamic and interesting way than any DJ could do. If you've got a funk tune that starts at 100 BPM and finishes at 120 and does all kinds of stuff in the meantime, then that's tactically a really good way to get from 100 to 120 without me doing anything. I don't have to slowly pitch it up over half an hour. It's like we're there. you know. So it's kind of, it's just, so a lot of the records that I let play out are kind of there for a kind of a tactical reason, as well as these are amazing pieces of music. It's like, well, this one changes tempo, or this one goes from broken beat to house, or this one changes time signature halfway through, or there's, or the first 3 minutes of drums and then the second 3 minutes of, kind of very soulful. So you can go from one mood to another mood in a very natural way, because it's, often it's a live performance. So it's I think it's just something I've done and I've never really stopped doing. And it's something for me, when I travel to, all around the world and play a lot of different venues and play these venues regularly, like Gretchen, for example, the fact that every time I've played for Lars and Pamela over the last 20 plus years in Berlin, I've always played for a long set. I've always felt part of this community, that they've been very, very, forthright in helping to create and encourage. And I think also on a practical level, if I'm traveling for 4 or 5 hours to play an hour, it just seems silly. You know what I mean? It's like, well, come and get stuck in, like get to know the people, connect with the venue, connect with the people in the city, build something, and then next time you come back and you build and improve on that. And it's always about progression. It's about building relationships, with the promoters, with the venues, with the regulars. So even if you're not from a place, you really feel home when you're there.
Think of life without music, silence the whole day long. Ears that don't hear rhythm, words without a song. You just don't know what to do. How could I live out my days? Would I be getting up, wishing my life away? When the drums come calling, the bass line pulls you in. Sounds of regal splendor, fit for a king and queen. Secrets of the universe, the mysteries of life, and the things that don't make sense all come clear, 'cause the music takes me
You're one of the nowadays rare DJs who are traveling with vinyl still. So how do you prepare for that long sets and the travel? I mean, it's a lot of records. Of course, you play digital too. You mix it up now, but still, it's sorting. Like, you never know how the vibe will be at some clubs, but you never know the night itself how it works out. For example, how you prepare for that.
And I think with records, I think most DJs who play vinyl, they'll kind of have a box or 2 boxes, and every week they'll take 10 records out and put 10 new records in. So slowly you build up a kind of foundation where all these records work together, and even if there's a real mix of music, some good transitions, or the music inside out. So it's quite good to have these restrictions. And yeah, it's very different to digital DJing. I think with digital you have a lot more choice. When I'm playing digital, I tend to use the technology to be able to loop old records to keep the tempo consistent. So I can mix a Latin record over a techno record, and it's kind of, I can loop the percussion bit and then fade the techno record out and then go into the body of the next tune. So technically the digital thing affords you many opportunities, but I think I like the restrictions of the vinyl, and I like the fact you're holding what feels like a piece of history in your hands as well. These are amazing objects which often you remember where you bought them as well. So it's kind of like you've got what the artist was saying on their record. You remember your impressions of when you first heard it. You remember how much work you put into finding this record, and how all this music travels around the world, and often when we're digging, we're picking up vinyl that's already had a life before we've sort of taken it. So yeah, I think it's about having a good box with a good selection, but it's a very different way of DJing in terms of you have a different relationship with an object rather than something on a screen. And I think that's an old school thing, simply because that's how we grew up. And I think the vinyl thing is really, it's nice because if you want to change the structure of the record, you've got to work really hard. You need 2 copies or whatever, or sometimes you're like, well, I'd like to loop this bit, but I can't. So you just deal with it. I think limitations push creativity as well, which is really important. So yeah, you just pack as many records as you're allowed to bring in terms of, weight restrictions and all that. And
I guess to smuggle into the head luggage.
Oh, yeah. But I bring a mixer and everything, so I always travel heavy. But then it's kind of, I think it's important. I put a lot of work into just making sure that wherever I play, it always sounds really good. And that means not only bringing your vinyl, but bringing a mixer, bringing cables, bringing styli, several sets of styli, bringing foam, bringing squash balls, bringing, a spirit level, bringing a cable tester, if you're something up with your cables, bringing spares of different things. So if anything happens during the gig, you're like, cool, I've got a spare, I'll swap that out. But it's, when you're DJing, when you experience some kind of technical fault, half the time it's something that you could have prevented or you could easily sort out. So I think when you're really well prepared technically, then if something happens, you're like, cool, I'm not stressed, this is fine, I know how to deal with it, it's happened before, there we go, and carry on. So yeah, I think with vinyl, there's just extra work and preparation because you want to be able to play it without worrying about it skipping or feeding back. You need to know how a turntable works. You need to know how to calibrate your tone arms and your styli and all that kind of thing. But it's not a lot of extra stuff to bring. It's not very heavy. You just need to make sure you've got it and you pack it and you don't forget it. And then it's cool. It's cool. But I think it's, I think if you're going to play vinyl, you need to really know how everything works technically and how to check all the equipment, because not every club is really familiar with how turntables work or what you need, to set up vinyl in the way anymore. Yeah. Well, it's always been the way. We always look back and go, it was particularly bad for a few years. And I think you did have a bit of a knowledge gap in terms of, because maybe for about 10 years there were not a lot of DJs playing vinyl, so the engineers just never experienced it. And now it's coming back, and it's cool. It's come back and it's cool. It's a bit of a trend thing. I don't mind. It's a record is a record, but I think it's kind of up to the DJs to learn their craft and then to pass that knowledge on to the venue engineers as well, because every time I've come to a venue and we set up and we're careful, I think if the engineer sees that you're respectful in their space and that you really care about what you're doing, they'll be really interested in what you're doing, because we're all geeks at the end of the day, and we all want it to sound good, or we all want a great gig. And it's just, we all exchange knowledge. I love speaking to the venue sound engineers because they teach me about their venue and how they've done things, and I explain what I want to achieve, and together we make some kind of agreement where we're all really pleased with it. But then the next time we come back to the venue, we have a relationship, and then we improve that again for next time, and, credit to Gretchen, for instance. The first few times we played there, we were having them take the sound system off the ceiling and stack it up, and hiring extra speakers and put drapes up for the acoustics, and we made them work hard. But it was a collaboration thing, and next time we came along, a lot of those changes that we requested they make for our gig, they'd made permanent. So you really felt part of a process in terms of how the venue, kind of moves forward and improves, because, it has to sound good. It has to make people feel comfortable. But this kind of process is often a very long, journey for a venue, because it's expensive, and you have to see how people behave in your room before you decide what moves to make next. So it's it's good. But the whole geeky preparation side, I find kind of really important and enjoyable as well.
It's a lot of error and trial, basically, especially if you're building from the ground up, from scratch. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So eventually you also became a producer, which is kind of like a natural progression for DJs usually. We got 5 albums out. You started with your first 12, Hocus Pocus, on a small Manchester label, Rob's Records. Then you had a short period with Marc Hype, and then landed at Ninja Tune. So that was like the start of your producer career, actually. How all this Ninja Tune deal affected your career at this point?
Well, I think I was really lucky in terms of, first of all, I think Grand Central, because I credit Mark Ray with really, the help that he gave so many artists, because he's so enthusiastic and fearless. He was the guy organising the tours. He was the guy driving all the artists around the country, putting on these label showcase gigs. He was organising, Grand Central versus Ninja Tune, or Fat City versus Ninja Tune events. So we'd have, the whole 4-deck thing that was popular in the 90s. So it'd be me and Mark Ray versus DJ Food or whatever. We'd do that in London. We'd go down to Ninja's night. They'd come up to our night. So it started off with a kind of a friendly, competitive sort of family thing. I did a DJ Food mega mix for Ninja in like 96. So I think when Ninja signed me in 98, although it was a big deal for me, not even DJ'd in a bar like 4 or 5, years previously. It kind of felt natural, because obviously Cold Cut were Ninja's founders. Cold Cut were a big inspiration to me in terms of their approach to DJing and production and the use of humour in the music. So I think signing to Ninja was great. I was very lucky that the first album I put out on Ninja did really well. So that was a real springboard to like better gigs and recognition, and kind of put me in a position where I could, keep pushing creatively and still bring people along with me in terms of keeping it enjoyable and engaging as well. And I've been with Ninja for 25 years now.
Really?
And it's great, but they've really grown as a company. And it's good to see a lot of these kind of, very long-running, established, independent labels who are still really eclectic, are still covering a lot of musical ground, still keeping up with the times, still know what's going on, but still have a sense of their own history as well. And obviously you've got True Thoughts, you've got First Word. There are so many labels, Warp obviously, and this is just UK labels, but I think the kind of, the longevity of many of these record labels is a thing to admire, I think, because it's not easy to, to kind of continue this in this day and age. Most labels might have a few years and, be hot, and then trends change, or I don't know, a format might change, or musical tastes and that kind of thing, and then someone else comes along and, the music moves off in a different direction. So yeah, it's about, I consider it very fortunate to have, been able to sign with a label like Ninja, who are independent, supportive, creative, musically have always been into something kind of interesting. Because, you hear about a lot of people signing to labels and then they're under pressure to almost become people they're not in order to fit what the label wants the artist to do. And it's kind of, that's not really how you want to proceed if you want to be doing it for a long time.
Right. So we're coming to some questions. What is Ninja Tuner?
Ninja Tuner, that was just, I suppose, me having fun with the Ninja Tune, kind of the label name, and
Really?
for that album, which in fact is going to get issued on vinyl for the first time this year. We're working on a triple vinyl issue of it, which is so that's good timing. It was just me having fun. because I think one of the really important things with the music is the kind of friendly face it has with the cartoons and the humor and the kind of silly names. And it enables, for me, the music to have an approachable face so that people come towards it and go, oh, this looks fun. And then it is fun. And then once you have people you've got them interested, then you can start playing around and getting quite creative and, quirky or deep or whatever mood you're in. But for me, it's always that fun element is always really important to kind of make people feel curious and welcome and to make them smile.
Yeah, it's a very special style. You're created the potato style, like all kind of drawings, and you also draw like flyers for clubs, like with other people's faces as potatoes and stuff. This is nobody's doing this besides maybe a little bit. You could say Kid Koala doing a little bit like sort of it. Yeah, all on your own completely. That's very, very unique. What he's doing this.
Yeah, and I think it's just something, same again, when I started out, I just illustrated my music with my cartoons because it made sense. I didn't really think about it or how it would be perceived. And then like nearly 30 years later, it's still going on and people really like it. And I think it's something, yeah, I think in a gig it can really kind of lift the mood as well, because we do visuals as well and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's just something which is personal to me that people like. So I continue doing it.
Absolutely, it's great. People loving it, and they're wearing shirts with it and everything.
Yeah.
That's super nice. And how much records you own?
A lot. Well, like you know what I mean? I collect records, so there's,
Yes.
it's, but yeah, I've got a few rooms of records, but, I like a lot of music and I'm old. So I don't know, about 20,000, something like that. But it's just like, for me, if you're a DJ and you're, the thing to me about DJing or to me, what gets me excited as a DJ is the constant excitement of what new music or new record is around the corner. And that could be a 50-year-old record with a killer drum break that I've not heard before. It could be some new MP3 from, wherever, Kenya. It's just like, I think every amazing new piece of music makes you think about your whole musical knowledge and collection in a different way. New music can recontextualize old music. And, I'm sure you get this a lot where you'll receive a new record and you're like, this is by some 18-year-old kid. This record reminds me of something from when I was growing up in the 80s. I don't even know if this kid's heard that original record, but it's going to make me pull it out. So a lot of new music can remind you of old music, either intentionally or just because there is some kind of element or mood or lyric that reminds you of it. So I think when you're DJing, it's like these records are all separate things, but it's your job to make them together and to make this kind of crazy family with all these different characters. And these characters and little musical conversations you control and you encourage when you're DJing, and obviously, that you're in a room where people are getting involved and interacting with what you're providing as well. So so every week there's, a crazy amount of new music and it's all really exciting. And I love it. I love the development. I love the way that new generations are pushing music forward, sometimes sideways, sometimes backwards. You know, a lot of kids are getting into older music, even if it's more modern old music, like kind of UK garage or broken beat or whatever. And it's like, it's weird for me when you've lived through a few styles of music, and those styles of music have kind of peaked and then gone down again. They've not disappeared, they're just bubbling there. And then 15 years later, a new generation is like, oh, I'm going to take that. They lift it up. The originators become inspired and kind of flattered. Then the music gets taken in a slightly new direction. But then the originators sometimes get a little extra energy and attention from that as well. And they're like, wow, I love what the kids are doing with what we've created. But this always happens, you know. You know, through time with any genre, and a lot of you know, there's the genres that we kind of, in my head, I think is new, like house music and stuff like that, or hip hop. It's like we're talking 40, 50 years old, you know what I mean? So a lot of the kids see that as old people's music, but in our mind, we're still 16 and getting excited about, you know, the first Jungle Brothers album or whatever. So yeah, for me, the collecting, sort of going back to the question, is a really important part of, I think, just keeping the momentum and the inspiration and the exploration as a DJ going forward. And you need the records or the music to do that, you know what I mean? And for me, I still feel a connection with music as a physical object, which is kind of, if you look at it objectively, is a bit of a weird thing, because music isn't an object. So why are we obsessed with these things? You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't quite understand, you know, because before like the year 1880, music was just in the air, unless it was on sheet music, you know, or punch cards for you know, kind of fairground organs and that, barrel organs and that kind of thing. So I understand it's kind of a bit of a weird thing, having an object that needs to be decoded in order to make it into vibrations in the air, but there's something really personal about these objects that people have created. And I think, you know, when you take them home and you put them on a shelf with others, it's like there's a new family living on that bit of the shelf. There's a new member to the family that kind of adds energy to what's already there. You know, it's kind of, yeah, I never get bored by it. And I think, you know, I think when, as a DJ, if you get excited by music and really inspired by it, and whether that's new music or old music, people can tell that. You know, when you've got your headphones and you're smiling because you know that this next record is going to make people go absolutely crazy, and people are like, wow, what's a strange expression, I wonder what we're going to hear next. You know what I mean? It's kind of yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to be able to do. You know, sort of feel part of this whole process of, you know, sharing music with people, whether it's familiar with music, whether it's brand new music that no one's heard, and the way you put it together to kind of make it all make sense, but in a way that's dictated by the music you're playing, you know, because every piece of music needs playing differently. So you have to listen to the records and watch the crowd and feel the sound system and the energy in the room and all the way that all these things add together. And then you're kind of taking these things which are supposed to be finished objects. You know, this is somebody's art that they've worked really hard on and has been mastered, and they've packaged it. you're taking that and pulling it into something else. It's like collage, or you're taking different people's paragraphs from different stories and you're stitching them all together and making them make sense somehow. But you're also letting the music lead the way a little bit. You have to be listening to what these records are telling you. So what should I play next? Well, that's, what's this vocalist saying? What are these musicians saying? How are they feeling? How is it making me feel? So it's kind of the whole process of DJing in terms of the music that you've brought with you, and maybe ideas that you have about the gig, and the way that the staff in the venue are, and the way the venue and the sound system are, and the way that the people in the room are making you feel, and the conversation that you all have going on between you. It's considering that you're using things that are technically finished, you have an infinite number of possibilities of where you can go next. And I think that's really exciting. And I think having more new records and hearing all these inspiring new productions and sometimes inspiring old productions that you're like, yeah, this is from 1960, but it's blown my mind. And this is what's going to direct the mood for the next half hour, is something I've discovered that other people might know about, but it's that excitement of discovery that you're then pulling people in and going, I'm really excited about this. And it's but that feeling when you're DJing, and if you can maintain that feeling when you're DJing of constantly being excited about whatever you're going to play next, that communicates to everybody in the room, and then that really lifts the mood, and then you're working with that mood to push it higher. You know what I mean? It's it's something that you have to treat with respect, I think, in terms of taking your art form seriously. But I think when you nurture it and maintain it like you would a relationship or a house plant, I think it's really rewarding.
take a short look into the future. Do you think that artificial intelligence will affect DJing, especially our style of DJing?
I don't know. I mean, I think the thing is with music, there have always been these discussions about technology. You know, it could be vinyl versus CD. It could be, digital versus physical. It could be, it could be a scratch mixer versus a rotary mixer. It could be, different types of music versus another different type of music. So I think these kind of, I think technology is useful. We're talking using a really useful app on our laptops, 1,000 miles apart. That to me is useful. And I think the whole AI thing is it's just another conversation, because whenever we get to a certain point in technology, you'll have perhaps the older generation like us who are like, thinking, oh, what's going to come next? But I think as it kind of filters down into everyday life, we'll adapt to it or ignore it as we see fit. You know what I mean? I think, although obviously with algorithms and stuff like Spotify or even record stores or that kind of thing, these things can be quite useful. They can also be really annoying as well. Technology kind of works at both ends of the spectrum, and I think, even people who moan about technology use it every day, even if they're like, yeah, I know that this isn't great for my mental health or that kind of thing. So I don't know, it's a very kind of complex and never-ending question about how's this next thing that we don't quite understand yet going to affect what we do. And I think what we'll do is we adapt. We have to. I don't think technology is going to replace creativity. It's going to help us, and if we ignore it, there'll be a whole new generation of kids who are just really comfortable with the technology and how accessible it is and how they can use it, you know what I mean? And there'll probably be a load of old schoolers like us moaning about how easy it is and how much more work we had to put in the olden days. But this always happens, I just think it's a case of, technology is moving forward. Bits of it we'll find useful, and others will think, well, that's kind of unnecessary. The same way you have DJs saying about, oh, that DJ uses the sync button. I don't care whether someone uses the sync button or not. You know what I mean? It's just like, whatever. When I'm making music on my digital workstation, everything stays in time. I'm not having to pitch everything, keep the drums in time with the bass. It's there already, So it's, I don't know. It's, I think we'll just have to wait, learn about it and see what happens.
Yeah. We have to, and we have to adapt. That's true.
Yeah.
Make us a brew. What is about your addiction to tea? Thing that you started selling teas.
Yeah, I had a tea company for a while. I used to sell tea at gigs as well. And I think it's, for me, same again, it started from me selling tea in clubs, because although now these days you can get a lot of, zero alcohol drinks and stuff like that if you don't want to drink all night, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't really the case. And I think it was really nice to provide, a cup of tea or coffee for people who came in the club. People wanted to stay up late, but they didn't want to take drugs. you know, they didn't want to have beer or someone's driving or whatever. So, all right, I can get a cup of tea. But it's such a simple thing. But when people walked into a nightclub and they were able to get something which made them feel comfortable and at home, and the fact it was there made them smile. So same again, it was just something that was an idea. We tried it, people liked it, we carried it on. You know what I mean? And it's it was just a nice, simple thing to do that, you know, a certain percentage of people who went to the club really appreciated it because either they didn't drink or were just a bit tired or maybe had had too much beer and just wanted a cup of tea to help them sober up.
Nice. So what holds the future for Mr. Scruff then?
I think continuing to kind of, you know, learn about and explore music, continue being creative, continue to be curious. That's really, really important. More collaborations. So yeah, I'm working with a rapper, a Mancunian rapper called Wanda, who is amazing. She's the fastest worker I've ever done music with, and it's frightening to keep up with. I work quite slowly, so I'll send her a beat, and 2 hours later she sent me back a full tune. It's like, okay, right, okay, it's on. So yeah, more production, both for myself and for other artists, a few remixes, still doing gigs. I think it's just, you know, I really enjoy what I'm doing. You know, it's kind of half doing music. I get to spend time at home with family. That's also wonderful. And then I get to, you know, do a bit of traveling and spend time with, you know, people in venues, and we're all sharing music that we really enjoy and are inspired by. And I think it's a good, you know, the main thing is getting a balance, I think, between all these elements. So, you know, you're kind of not overworking yourself. You're giving yourself opportunity to relax and appreciate, you know, you kind of the circumstances and the people around you. But I think for me, the most important thing is to be curious and you know, keep having conversations with people who are, you know, creative and passionate, because everyone's got their own ideas and you know, for me, I really enjoy traveling to different venues, because I think although musicians and artists and people who kind of create art are culturally very important, these spaces where we all come together to kind of celebrate and to allow this art to flourish and to get people together to kind of encourage, you know, a spirit of community is, you know, I could not imagine what we do without that, you know what I mean? And then kind of going back to what you were saying about technology and all that kind of thing, nothing is better than us all being in the same room, you know, dancing to the same piece of music and all feeling that same feeling. And what can come out of that energy and these interactions on that night, and where this goes creatively for whoever's playing and the people in the venue, and just the friendships you make and the bonds that form and the communities that kind of come from that, and the other creative things that maybe that night or those interactions inspire, you know what I mean? I think that's, yes, I think it's really important to kind of celebrate and cherish these spaces that we come together in.
Yes. So thanks a lot for this great interview, all your in-depth and thoughts you shared with us.
Thank you.
It was, I had a really good time. It was like lots of things for thinking about. Still, it's really nice.
Nice one.
so they can't ignore ya.